Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another Middle Age Gaming Podcast, the number one source for all gaming news and related items and gaming and stuff for people your age, whatever age you are. Today, we are back with the regular people talking about all things gaming. Today, our topic is Nine Souls, a Taiwanese game by the studio Red Candle Games, or Red Candle. I don't remember. Adam will fill us in later. Um, so, as usual, lots of stuff going on. There's so much going on in gaming. We won't be covering a lot of news today. We might have a few minutes for it towards the end of the show, but let's get into it with Antoine as usual. Um, Even though I said right, Adam is first alphabetically, so we're also going with Antoine. Antoine, what you been playing?
Well, I finally finished Tales of Arise after months and months of playing it. And just for the little info, I'm bumping my mark to 18.f compared to last week simply because the end game stuff is fantastic and it's really well made. And it's one of the first RPG where the grinding to level 100 has been absolutely seamless. They found a way to connect these Tales of with previous Tales of, all the worlds of Tales of exist in the same multiverse, if you will. So they kind of have the space time hole rip, if you will, and you can just get into other Tales of to see. There's only you always see in Tales of character from past games. So here in this one, you had Edna from Tales of Zestiria and a brother Aizen, which was in Tales of Berseria and in Zestiria as well, I think. I never played Zestiria, so I can't tell. But in any case, you have sixth level, which makes you level up from level. You finish the game without this around level 65, and they make you climb from 65 to 1995. At 1995, you have a series of very hard boss battle, end game battle, and you reach level 100 pretty easily. So I platinum the game. It's not that hard to platinum the game, and it's really well made. So I really hope they keep this formula for the next Tales of. Well done.
I mean, why was it like why you said why was it so? But why was the in-game content so amazing? Because I feel like in my experience, I rarely hear in-game content is that well done.
Yes. Take Final Fantasy VI, for instance. Was it this one, the six with Kafka the Clown?
Yep.
Yes. So if you remember, it's an old one, so it's not spoilers, right? You beat Kafka, you fight Kafka, you lose, end of the world, blah blah blah, and the game goes very well until this midpoint, and then from that point to the end, the game is a pain. Like finding all the characters, you have to grind like mindlessly, fight countless monsters without that much story. I don't really like this kind of grinding. In lots of FF, like the content bring you to a certain level, say 80. But if you want to beat the secret final boss, you have to, for 20 levels, go around the map, find the spot which gets you the most XP, and kill monsters and kill monsters. And that's brainless and annoying and mindless. Here, they made some levels which makes you win 5 levels without you finding the fact that you're actually grinding, just going through a level, beating the boss. You got 5 level within this level, within this stage, let's say, rather than this, so that it stops saying level all the time. Then you pass to the next one and you get your 5 levels. Next stage, 5 levels. Next stage, you do that 6 times, you're already level 90. So you, with the right food, which gives you more experience, you beat the boss. Kronos in this series of stages. Kronos gets you just like 3 or 4 levels just by fighting him. With this, you are level 94, 95. You can go to the space station to beats the final boss, and then with all of this, just beating him once get you again 3 4 levels. Maybe you have to redo this boss twice to go to level 100, but in all of this I never had to go to one spot of the map and shoot monsters to level up. Never. I go to the end of the game and it has been seamless. I was never bored as hell for like hours on end just killing the same set of enemies, and that's great.
Nice. That sounds interesting because I know in-game content one of the biggest criticisms in a lot of games across the spectrum is being just boredom, doing the same thing over and over again. So that sounds really cool.
And they
Any
avoided that trap.
nice? Any thoughts, Adam?
No, it just sounds interesting. So yeah, I think you covered it all.
Okay.
How long would you say the game is in total to platinum? How long did it take you?
Good 100 hours, more
Yeah.
than that. Yeah.
Sounds about right.
But again, yeah. But again, the first time you do the game, lot of script, lot of cutscenes. The second time you do the game and you cut all of this, and you know what? You actually, because of how they made the end game content, you don't even need to do the new game plus. I did it because I wanted to see how it worked. But for the whole game, I got maybe one level, 1.5 level until the end game boss. So I just redoing all of this did nothing nearly to me. So really, if I just finish the game once, load my save on not a new game plus, just load my save on the first game and do the end game content, I would still be level 100 with absolutely everything. So you don't even need to do new game plus, even though the new game plus with the artifacts, as I mentioned before, is really well done. Again, no, they manage the end game content absolutely perfectly, and that's the first time I see that in a video game. Love it. They have a lot of experience and they had a lot of miss, in the previous games. Berseria, as I mentioned, was terrible. Compared to Berseria, it's fantastic, really. They really nailed it.
Nice. Who doesn't love a positive start to a gaming morning? Adam, what about you? Going to continue the positivity?
Yeah, so I finished I'm all caught up with the patch for Final Fantasy 14, so I'm all ready to go for the next one. They did their live letter, I think, last Saturday, I want to say, but I'm not quite sure. But they did the most recent live letter, so we're getting ready. They haven't released the patch notes yet, but we're getting ready for the next one. So all caught up there. And I've been playing. I went back, did a little bit of Dot Hack GU. Got a little bit further. Got some comments from my wife where I was playing, and she's like, "This is a Japanese game, isn't it?" And I was like, "Yeah," because there are these little things called grunties, and at the end of each sentence, they have like some kind of signature sound. So they'll be like blah 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 oink blah 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 oink, right? And they do that at the end of every line. And she was watching me play, and she's like, "This is a Japanese game, isn't it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And she's like, "I can tell because Japanese games are the only ones that have characters that make that kind of like the only Japanese games talk that way." So played some of that, and yeah, and that just kind of I played the Nine Souls demo in anticipation of today, and yeah, see, that covers it.
Very cool. Oh, cool. So, I mean, this will probably leave us a lot more time. For me, as I spoke about last week, I stopped. What did I stop? I stopped Dragon Quest Builders 2, and I started Cozy Grove. And Cozy Grove, pretty cool. It's not like not what I expected. I expected to be more Stardew Valley-esque, and I looked at a bunch of reviews. I thought it'd be like some farming or like what is that, Story of Seasons games, or Maple Story, not Maple Story, Harvest Story, Harvest something, Harvest Moon. Yes,
Harvest Moon.
yes. So, but no, Cozy Grove is like a beautiful hand drawn, find the hidden object with story game. And then like I had heard about it, like there's a set amount of content per day. So I got to this point where it's like, yeah, so you should just stop playing and come back. That's literally what the game told me. Come back tomorrow. And I was like, oh, okay, sure. And so since that point, I ended up buying Hades. I think a whole bunch of people's sort of game of the year last year. And damn, that game is impressive. Like Supergiant Games, the guys who made Bastion and Transistor, oh my god, they stepped it up because I hate roguelite games with a passion, because all that stuff is frustrating. Who wants to play and die and play and die and play and die and play and die and play and die? No, not me. But apparently it's cool. So it's very well voice acted. I wish they had like Greek actors like Assassin's Creed Odyssey did, because I mean these are all like Hades is Greek or Roman depending how you want to look at it, but it's fun. Like really good voice acting, really good story, like and not overly too much a story. It's like you die, you come back, people say, "Hey man," you have like a few lines of dialogue voice acted, and then you go back and you kill more stuff. And progression's really good. The music is really good. The fighting is really good. It looks fantastic, and there is a gigantic wasp in my room.
Save
Sorry about
yourself.
that. It is trying to get out of my room, but my door is closed, so I might have to open that later. We'll see. But yeah, no, fantastic game. Definitely something I would recommend to people if they were averse. Like in my life, I disliked adventure games growing up, and Gone Home changed that for me. And this feels like, okay, after I play this, I'm going to try and play Everspace, which is another space roguelike. I'm going to try and find some games that have this progression mechanic. Dead Cells apparently is like this as well. So I want to give those a try, but definitely a big recommendation from me. I've died 17 times in the last 8 hours that I've played this. So pretty fun. I'm liking it. Definitely a big recommendation.
Nice. I've heard a lot about Hades, but I haven't picked it up yet.
No,
It's
I
really
mean,
cool. Go ahead,
if
Anton.
Korean recommend it, it must be good because it's really not your type of game.
No, it's not. But
Yeah.
it's also why I like it is always very suitable for like middle-aged gaming because you can save whenever you want. So basically you save, and then like if you need to go spend time with your kids or spend time with the wife or go to work or do something, you can come back and resume from that point. Also each runs themselves, like each level, a run is made up of multiple levels, and you can save at any point during a level. But you like a run, like maybe each time, the longest I played a particular run was like 30 minutes. So you could play this for 30 minutes and die and go do whatever you need to do, which I thought was fantastic for people who have a small amount of time to game.
Makes sense.
Cool. Okay. So that's it for us, guys. If you have any comments about Hades or about Tales of
Arise.
Arise, god damn it, Tales of Arise and Final Fantasy or .hack GU or Japanese gaming and Japanese sounds in gaming, please let us know. Twitter.com/gamingaged or email us as middleagedgaming2020@gmail.com. As we mentioned before, we are starting a series. We're talking about games that have been kickstarted or already finished kickstarted. Today's game is Nine Souls from the place Adam and I call our home, Taiwan. A fantastic studio that is noted for horror games. I guess Adam is correct.
Two
Before
games so far, yeah. They're kind of horror, in the horror adjacent, yeah.
So Adam's already started, so I'll let him take over once you fill us in on Nine Souls.
You can get rid of your wasp.
I have no idea where it is.
And your politicians too.
And your
by the way,
politicians
please.
in the background. Yeah. All right. So yeah. So there is a demo up. So if you guys want to play it, feel free to go onto Steam. You can pick it up there. I think you can even go onto their website and pick it up directly from there. But Nine Souls is a 2D platformer. It is inspired by Sekiro, so it has a Sekiro-like, what do you call it? The parry system, and that factors very heavily into the way the combat is done. The crowdfunding is over. There is no what do you call it when you can back something after the fact?
It's like backer kit, or there's a whole bunch of terms for it, but allows you to sort of crowdfund later.
Yeah, so the crowdfunding is over. I think the reason that they did that was they were not doing it through a crowdfunding site. You might remember one of their games, Devotion, which was on Steam and then got review bombed and then was taken down off of Steam, and then then GOG picked it up and said they were going to put it on, and then backed out and said no, actually we're not going to do that. So they've eventually just started doing everything on their own site, and they just release things directly. And I think part of the reason that they didn't do it through common crowdfunding like Kickstarter is probably they are a Taiwanese company, so maybe that's not as big here. But also B, I think it's one of those things where they just didn't want to have to deal with, we're going to put something up and then later on it's going to, we have bad experience working on other people's platforms. So we're just going to do this ourselves. So I think that's part of the reason that they did that. And also, I think part of the reason that they decided not to do where you can back it once the crowdfunding is over is if you looked at the stretch goals, they were very much saying that, we want to deliver this, but we need the time, the funding, and all that to do it. And I think it was one of those things where they said we have enough money to do what we want to do with this, and because of time constraints, we have to actually build the game. So, we don't have the funding now. We're going to start working on the project. If people give us more money, we already have the money we need. So more money's not really going to be super helpful. But also, we can't give you these extra things because we've already started. So I think it was one of those things where it's like, we have what we need. There's, extra money is just us putting money in our pockets. It's not going to benefit the production in any way. So we'll just, just buy it on release. But yeah, so I backed it myself. I got high enough that I can get my name in the credits, and that was about it. There were some that were really high that you could get, where you could have like an in-game profile, and you could leave messages in the game and whatnot. So if you guys are watching the stream, you can see the video here. This is all from the demo, so this is me actually playing the game. I did it in traditional Chinese, just so that it wouldn't ruin any plot for anybody who can't read traditional Chinese. So, but then I'm going to go ahead and tell you spoilers anyway, so that was probably an exercise in futility. So anyway, their goal was 3 million NT dollars, Taiwan dollars. They raised up to 13 million. So the stretch goals that they reached were a story mode, which Korean will enjoy because that's an easier difficulty. If you a lot of games now have easy mode, and now a lot of games have added what's called story mode, where basically it just makes all combat trivial. And
It's just for journalists.
it's just for just get through the story and whatnot. They've added in-game cutscenes. That was the second one. And they added alternate endings. So we're getting those. And then the two that we did not access, that they did not raise enough money for, were hidden bosses and question mark, which who knows what they were going to add there, but we don't know.
We have no idea.
No idea. Yeah, maybe it was voice acting or something, because this game is not voice acted at all. So maybe that's what it was, but no, that wasn't added. So the game is described as being inspired by Sekiro, and as I said before, that has to do with the parry system. So what happens is, as you play through the game, you play as a character named Yi, which I'll get into later. But he uses basically talismans. They call them Fu charms in the game. But that's basically his form of attack. He just takes these things and kind of smacks you around with them. But what you can do is, when you get a perfect parry, you can charge them up. And starting off, at least in the demo, you can charge them up to 3 times. If you do, after you complete the demo, you can face an optional boss, an extra boss, and you have 4 in there. So they do have kind of tech trees where you can upgrade your character a little bit. But basically what happens is, you do a perfect parry, you charge your Fu charms, and then you can do an attack where what you do is you dash past an enemy or enemies, and any enemies that you dash past, you'll slap a talisman on them or a charm on them, and then they'll explode. And you do kind of a little prayer thing, and then they explode. So this is a really big part of the mechanic. You'll see me doing it later, but yeah. So you just dash past them. It's kind of interesting. It does a lot of damage. It's really useful against bosses and that sort of thing. So that's kind of interesting. But the whole parry system is kind of based off Sekiro, because there is no guard button. If you hit the guard button and your timing is slightly off, you can still block. If you hit it perfectly, you get that perfect parry where it charges your talismans. If you're too early or too late, then it just doesn't do anything, and you just take the damage. So there is a little bit of skill when it comes to blocking. Now, in story mode, I'm assuming that's going to be much, much less. So, but it has kind of they call it a Punk or a Dao Punk, which is a fusion of, because we know like cyberpunk and steampunk and all that. Well, Dao Punk is a fusion of kind of those elements with Taoism, the traditional Chinese religion. So religion does play a very prominent role in this game, which I was kind of wondering originally, because the last 2 games definitely featured traditional Chinese religion quite a bit, and this one is definitely continuing that trend. And again, it seems to have a semi-negative spin on it in the same sense that the last 2 did. But I'll get into that later. It's so that's the style. It's kind of got this traditional Chinese clothing. It's kind of got this Chinese music, but it's kind of got the cyber beats over it and whatnot. There are sci-fi elements, so that sort of thing. It is intended to be released on the PC and the Mac. We know it's coming out on Steam, but they are also intending to release it on Nintendo and PlayStation consoles. I did not see anything about Xbox yet. I don't know, maybe they will add that later, but Taiwan is very much a PlayStation country. So it doesn't surprise, or PlayStation and Nintendo. Switch is definitely king here. But then PlayStation comes in second, and Xbox is a very far third. So it doesn't surprise me that it wasn't one of their priorities. But hopefully, just for exposure's sake, they'll get more out there. The languages, it comes in English. It has the written languages are English, Japanese, Korean, and Chinese, both traditional and simplified. And one of the things that they said was one of the most difficult things is translation, which I thought was interesting because, and this does come into it, because if you are familiar with Chinese mythology, you're going to catch a lot of stuff. Whereas if you're not, there's going to be a lot of things that they're almost like Easter eggs in a way that you're going to miss. So getting into the story, the name of the game is Nine Souls, but Souls is spelled SOLS, which means, a sun, the sun. And if you understand Chinese, the Chinese name is literally Nine Suns. So the second character there, the first character is Nine, second character is Sun. The main character, his name is Yi, which is the same character used for Hou Yi, which is a Chinese mythological figure. And he was an archer, and one of your abilities in this game is archery. But in his legend, there was a time at the beginning of Earth where there were 10 suns, but they would pass over one at a time. But one day, all 10 suns came up at the same time and basically were burning the entire Earth. So the King of Heaven basically tasked Hou Yi with putting an end to this. So first he goes to the suns and he tries to reason with them, and they're like, screw you, dude, we're going to burn the Earth. We're going to come out here at the same time. So then he starts shooting arrows at them to kind of scare them away. That doesn't work either. So then he ends up shooting down 9 of the 10 suns, so that there's only one left. And depending on the legend, either the king and the mother of the sun come out and basically beg him, don't shoot the last one, the Earth needs it. Or in different versions of the story, either a young boy or the King of Heaven steal his 10th arrow, so he's unable to shoot down the last sun, because they realize we need that last sun. The Earth needs a sun. So in either case, there were 10 suns, 10 souls. He shot down 9 of them. In this story, Yi himself is an alien species called a Solarian. And if you talk to some of the people in the game, they talk about in the game, there's a legend that 10 gods descended from the heavens. And, they basically brought peace to the earth. And so, and these gods are called souls. So they said 10 souls came down. So it's very much following this Chinese legend in a lot of ways. This guy Yi is supposed to be an archer. He's supposed to take out at least 9 of the 10 souls. So yeah, definitely having that knowledge of Chinese mythology and stuff is going to allow you to appreciate it quite a bit more. So that's kind of interesting right there. So so far in the demo, if you're playing through the story, basically at the very beginning we saw he's talking to this older soul, and she's got a sword to him. He falls off a mountain. He supposedly dies, and then he is found years later by this young boy. Right now, if you're watching the demo that we have, they're showing basically there's a ceremony that they do every so often. And in the ceremony, they'll select people from the village, and they will ascend into godhood, basically. So these people will ascend and becomes gods. But as you're going to see in the video very shortly, it doesn't quite go the way the people think it does. It's a very different kind of ceremony, and it doesn't work out so well for them. So Yi ends up taking the place of basically one of the people that was supposed to go and ascend into heaven. and he then descends into this kind of mechanical world where these Solarians, they're aliens, but the people worship them as gods, and they're doing some nefarious things there. And so he's kind of descending into their world to seemingly put a stop to it. We don't know his motivations quite yet. The demo doesn't go that far into it. He doesn't seem to be. He's one of them, but he doesn't seem to be along with them. So he either betrayed them, or maybe they betrayed the greater species, and he was sent as a spy to stop them. It's not quite sure right now. So yeah, it seems to be very interesting. I'm looking very forward to it. And yeah, basically short story there.
Anton, what do you think?
It looks cool. I didn't catch the nine soul stuff originally. For me, he is a cat, so they made a pun, between the souls because he's a cat, so nine lives,
Oh,
and souls as a son. Because I had no clue what son were, in the story. You explained it, so thank you very much. I thought it was a pun like this, like he has nine life. Will it affect the gameplay? I don't know. So I guess not. Because since you said the Chinese is literally nine son.
Yeah, there were 10 sons, and he took out 9 of the 10, so now we only have 1.
So we really don't have any aspect of the fact that he's a cat.
That's just his alien species. That's just what
Yeah,
his
okay.
species looks like.
Okay, I just thought of this just because of the character design and the name, so I infer wrong. So don't do like me. Yeah, no, it's absolutely beautiful. I really like the artistic design of it. Between this and the fact it's a 2D platformer, it really made me think of Hollow Knight like,
Does look a lot
which
like Hollow Knight, yeah.
yeah, I haven't played Hollow Knight, but it's on my Xbox Live Game Pass, so definitely gonna try that. But this one looked beautiful, very smooth. There's something in the trailer which made me laugh. It's at some point, there's some little sentence in the trailer saying, "If you master Tao, you don't need violence to vanquish your enemy," or something like this. 2 seconds later, you see your cat or your Solarian destroying people. Until then, it was just discovery and wow, look at this! It's beautiful, it's smooth, it looks great. You do not need to vanquish enemy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that made me laugh a bit. I was like, maybe not the best time to put this little pancart or something like this. But otherwise, looks really, really good. Did you say, because it's a Kickstarter, of course, did they mention when they are planning to release it?
Yes, they are releasing it Q2 2023.
With expected delays or?
No expected delays at this time. So yeah.
I expect some delays though, just because of the rules that we have here in Taiwan at the moment. Like most companies, with the exception of the one that I used to work for and Adam works for, is if somebody's sick, you get tested, and if you're positive, you're out for a week. So I think I told you guys a bunch of the stuff I've kickstarted. Even the studio is based in Indonesia, and even them, their original release date was end of this year. They pushed it back another year just because so many people have gotten sick. There have been the after effects of long COVID and that sort of stuff. So it's unfortunate. I think any studio in Taiwan is unlikely to meet a release date, given how often people go out and eat and get sick, and then you're out for a week, or who knows what other problems they could be related to COVID here. And the governments here said that they're not going to change the rules. There's a limited number of people coming into Taiwan as well, 25,000 a month. And people are like, why? And like, this is just the way it is. So Adam, do you think there's going to be is next year going to be the early access?
I don't know. I didn't see anything for early access. Like I said, they're not doing it. I mean, it's on Steam. It's going to be on Steam, but it seems to be that they're doing everything through their own site. So I don't know if there's early access. I did see something about maybe a beta at some point. So maybe they'll do that. I don't remember if my tier allowed access to the beta or not. But yeah, I don't think they're doing early access.
Okay. Did they release some kind of roadmap or not? Not official.
No, they just released the. If you look, they have a series of tiers, and it just says which ones they've unlocked, and it just says quarter to 2023 is when it'll all come out. And that's basically it.
Well, we wish them luck because we want to see that on our screens.
Yeah, no, it definitely looks very interesting, and I did enjoy it. Now, you don't get to see everything in the demo. I didn't get into any of the trees or anything like that, and then also the archery was not unlocked in the demo. So apparently that's a fairly big part of the game. You can switch out your different kinds of arrows and do different sort of things with that. But that wasn't unlocked in the game, or in the demo, so I wasn't able to experiment with any of that. You also get other abilities, such as a grappling hook and double jump. Double jump is not accessed in the game. So it does seem to have kind of Metroid elements to it as well. In the demo, it's very linear, so there's no real need to backtrack or anything like that. So I don't know if it's going to remain linear in the final game, or if it is going to be more of a Metroidvania where you're going back and accessing old areas. It wouldn't surprise me if it is. But yeah.
Okay. They have to be careful on when they release it as well, because the expansion or the next game of Hollow Knight will be coming roughly around the same time as well. So they have to be careful, because if they release at the same time, it's gone. They're never gonna outshine Hollow Knight, unfortunately.
No, it's not gonna outdo Hollow Knight.
But really looks nice. I'm looking at the animation; it's really cute.
Yeah, it's really smooth, and they have the cat people. Later on, they're gonna show a little closer up of another one. So, yeah.
May I ask, because me, Tao, I don't really know much about it. You mentioned that in the previous 2 games they did, and in this one as well, they are talking about Tao not necessarily well, like...
Yeah. So in the previous 2 games, in... What was it? In the first one they made was Detention. And in Detention, it doesn't mention too much in terms of religion, but the few mentions that it does seem to be kind of talking about people maybe making excuses for certain behaviors that are not necessarily good, or would be considered good, or that could be considered harmful in some ways. But most of that isn't talked about too much. Devotion, though, goes pretty deep into it. Devotion is a story about a man who is super devoted to his particular cult or sect of... It's not clear whether it's Buddhism or Taoism. It shows elements of both, and there is a lot of overlap between the two. At least in Chinese Buddhism, there's a lot of overlap with Taoism. And he takes it to an extreme, and ultimately it ends up getting his daughter killed. Because he ends up going to one of these kind of snake oil salesmen that are selling him on these things that'll fix her condition. He ends up spending all of his money on it. His wife abandons him. His daughter ends up... They go to some extreme kind of, things that are supposed to cure her of certain things, and it ends up ultimately doing more damage than it helps. And so it does kind of have a negative view of fanaticism in that regard. And in this one, it's obviously based on this traditional the legend, but at the same time, I mean, the whole idea of, for Yi, he's kind of got these he's got the talismans, he's got the food charms, he's got kind of these elements of Taoism and all that. But at the same time, that is part of the alien culture, and the aliens bring it down to Earth, and then they are worshipped, and they are using it to kind of manipulate the people and to do some nefarious things. So they're using these people's belief in themselves, and they're corrupt, and they're taking advantage of that. And so it's kind of that commentary on certain times where you can get religion can be corrupting, or in the wrong hands. It might be good. The people think it's good, but secretly the people at the top, the aliens, are manipulating them. As you saw there in the ceremony, the people believe that these people are ascending to heaven and becoming souls themselves. So they believe that these humans are becoming, gods and moving on to heaven, and this is a great honor. If you look real closely at the silhouette, you can see what it's actually doing is it's ripping their head off. And you can see in the background here that there's basically a body processing plant, and there's, headless torsos that are being processed for God knows what, for food or to allow these aliens to, maintain immortality or whatever. We're not sure. We haven't gotten that far in, but clearly they are taking advantage of the faith of humanity. So the humans, they live in this world. Apparently it was pretty crappy. So the aliens give them this nice place to live, but they're kind of like treated like cattle, right? You're living in this beautiful field with all this grass and there's no predators and everything's wonderful. Or so it seems, until you end up in the slaughterhouse. So that's yeah.
That's fun because it's exactly what it was. Did you saw the movie Cloud Atlas?
I did not see Cloud Atlas, no.
It was fantastic. And in Neo Seoul, in Korea, in future Korea, it's the same. They create, I don't know if they I think they are cloning, they're not androids, but these ladies which live in restaurants and that's all their life. They are like robotically serving clients, suffering abuse and everything. And like each year of service, they get a stamp, and after 8 or 9 or something like this, they ascend. Which like all the others, the servants are like, oh, so lucky, she's ascending, and there's all this ceremony of seeing the girls, put a little cape and going off, and actually she gets killed pretty ruthlessly, and her body is being processed to become soap, which actually is being used to feed the other servants. So it's very similar, and I'm wondering it's an Asian thing or something. But on another topic, Taiwan. Here, this game in particular looks very made for the Asian market. Aren't they a bit scared of the fact that like China video game at the moment, it's not really like should be a massive market, but it's pretty closed off. That's gonna be a massive loss in revenue. Do you think they're a bit scared because we know that Chinese legend adapted in anime or books or something? This could work very well. Look at Monkey King. Everybody know Monkey King, and even if they don't, they know Dragon Ball, which is the Monkey King. So it could work very well with Westerners. But here it's a small indie game, so might not have this same level of view or awareness, for Westerners. Unless you are watching Middle Age Gaming and we are showing you the next hidden gem in Asia, of course. So yeah, I'm a bit, not scared for them because they did a crowdfunding and they got the money. So somehow we hope that they won't drown if the game doesn't work. But it's still a massive lack of money, not being able to access the Chinese market. You know how they feel, the studios these days in Taiwan?
I don't think they care, to be honest.
Really?
I don't think they give two rats butts. I mean, they had and if anything, I think that they would wear that as a badge of honor. I mean, their game Devotion was pretty well received in China until they saw, somebody saw that one asset, and then they review bombed the game. They got the game banned from Steam. The game, they worked hard to get the game back out. It was going to come out on GOG. GOG agreed to it. And then, Chinese people complained again and GOG took it down. So I think from their concern, they're like, you know what? We have zero intention that any Chinese people were going to buy this in the first place. That was never a goal for us because we, in the past, they've screwed us over too many times. So we had zero expectations of Chinese sales. If Chinese people want to buy it, fantastic. That's great. But I think they basically went into this with the expectation that there would not be any sales in China. So I don't think they're too worried about that. Also, they're a relatively small studio. And as we've seen, they've already, they reached their goal of 3 million NT and they made it, 400 something percent of what their goal was. So, I think they pretty much already have all the money that they need for the game to succeed. They basically got paid in advance. So I don't think they're too concerned with it. I think they would think it was amazing and really cool. But I don't think it's a concern for them yet.
Mm-hmm. So on a broader topic, I've seen, for instance, in France, not the same kind, but a studio was making videos on YouTube. There were just young students who made a very popular web series, and they made it into a game. And to make the game, they went to crowdfunding, asked the fan to fund the game. Here, I see they did the same. Do you think that crowdfunding would be kind of the future for indie developers? Like hey, you like our previous games or universe or so, give us money to make another game. You think that's something which gonna develop more in the future?
I think it's gonna be a mixed bag. I mean, on the one hand, it's one of those things where, if somebody really needs the funding, yeah, it'll definitely it'll definitely be around in the future. That I'm sure of. But the thing as to whether it is the future, I don't really know, because I think for a lot of indie devs, the idea is I want to get this game out one way or the other, and crowdfunding is a way to get the funding. But something like Minecraft, when Notch originally made that, he just did it on his own, right? And then I think, for example, with this one, I think probably it was one of those ideas where, like, we want to make the game, but maybe we just want to add some extra stuff to it, and so we're more concerned with how far can we take it rather than can we make it at all. And so crowdfunding will be more about building it up rather than just the de facto way to get it out in the first place. Because also too, I mean, with so many crowdfunding things out there, there's no guarantee of you being able to even get that funding, right? And also too, with crowdfunding, you need some kind of hook, and having like a demo like this where people can go out and play it right now. And I think the demo was out even before crowdfunding started, or maybe it came out alongside the crowdfunding. So they had to develop this beforehand. So yeah, I think it'll definitely be around, but I don't know if it'll be the only way for people to do that, because I think you'll still get some people that are like, this is a passion project, I want to do it whether there's money or not. So yeah, it's not as financially motivated as AAA games.
What about you, Krinke? What do you think? Crowdfunding for indie studios or loan people?
I think it's already a thing. Crowdfunding has been going on for indie gaming for like the last 5 years or so. I think a lot of people have become disenfranchised with like typical AA, AAA, even single A gaming as a whole. So crowdfunding makes more sense because you're buying a game, you're getting it at a discount, first of all. The company, they're getting not 100% of the money that they crowdfund, but they're getting, I think, somewhere between 70 to 80% on Kickstarter. I'm not sure how Kiss Bank works. Maybe Antoine would know more about that. But now Kickstarter is something between 70 to 80%, depending how much you've crowdfunded, depending your success on the past on Kickstarter. Kickstarter has a whole bunch of rules. But I mean, if you look at what Kickstarter has done for board games, or crowdfunding has done to board games, it's just sort of happening already for video games at the moment. Like this year, 2021 was the most crowdfunded year. I've crowdfunded the most number of video games, and I mean, there could have been a lot more, but I just like, stop, Crit, stop! You can't finish all those games at one time. But like going back to what you said about the Chinese market, like, we know Chinese regulators, we talked about it on the show before, they become much more strict. And I think you look at Top Gun as well. Top Gun was not released in China, and Top Gun still crossed $1 billion US. So I think a lot of Western companies and Western studios have realized we don't need the Chinese market. It's unnecessary. You've got Japan, you've got Korea, you've got Indonesia, you've got all the other Chinese communities. You've also got lots of people love indie games now. They love to participate in them. They're great value for money. I mean, to be honest, the last AAA game I bought was Battlefield 2042, and while that was fun, it is definitely not worth $60 at all. So, I mean, and I think I've seen a lot of that on social media in general, that people like, yeah, I haven't seen anyone who's been really satisfied with a AAA game, but I've seen lots of satisfaction with games like Stardew Valley, of course, being the indie starlight, like the game that I played with the dancing card game. This is so much going on. There's that other freaking card game that people love to play that was very popular on YouTube, which I cannot think of the name right now. Do you guys know the game I'm talking about? It was like a roguelite card game.
Inscription?
No, that is the horror card game, but that's also a very good
It's
example.
fantastic. Huh?
Yeah. Oh
It's a
well, no,
great game.
fantastic for people who like scary stuff, and not for me though.
It's not that scary.
But yeah, no, Inscription was another game made by a very tiny studio, absolutely fantastic. So I think like this game, it's guaranteed to be a success beyond the 13 million Taiwanese dollars. And I mean, just to remind you guys, Taiwan has an extremely low cost of living. So the 13 million dollars made by this game, plus paying out everybody's salaries, plus some bonuses that you'd get in roughly about 7-8 months time when it's Chinese New Year, they'd still be making a few million Taiwanese dollars, which in this economic climate is wonderful, right? Um, so it's I think this is the time for indie studios to shine. Basically, to sum up my point, is horrible macroeconomics, right? High inflation everywhere. Turkey, Peru, increasing cost of energy here in Japan, Taiwan, in Europe as well. Um, People's discretionary money, the extra money they have, is going to be less and less and less because things have gone up in prices. Heat waves in Antoine's part of the world as well, right? Uh, so it's going to be a horrible time for the next 2 to 3 years. Layoffs in technology companies. So whatever extra money you have, you don't want to be spending $50, $60, right? I think this is priced at a good point, and I can imagine even if they launch in early access, they'll probably be even cheaper, if they do it on Steam. So it's the only thing I see for this game is just guaranteed 100% success, unless COVID wipes out the entire team in Taipei somehow. Uh, that would be the only bad thing that I
Let's
foresee.
hope not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Final thing I wanted to get you guys take on today before we head out is you guys would have probably seen that Ubisoft is removing the multiplayer function of a bunch of stuff, right? And because of removing that multiplayer function, it removes your access to the DLC. We'll go Antoine first. What do you think the fallout of that is going to be? Is there going to be any fallout? Are people still going to buy DLC games or games with DLC?
Actually, I didn't even see the news, so
You were too busy. So basically, Ubisoft
sorry. Yeah.
removed something like 25 games and their multiplayer functionality. But the problem with that is it also removed your access to the DLC. There's a bunch of Assassin's Creed, Far Cry's. So if you bought the DLC for that game, you cannot access it anymore after the end of this month, something like that.
The hell? What are they playing at?
Yeah, you can still get the
What
game, but not
what
the DLC. Yeah.
what's the motivation? Yeah, well, the point of the DLC is to make money for Ubisoft. So why would and it is Ubisoft? They live off DLC. So what's
But it's, even if you
what?
bought the DLC, you can no longer access it. So
Yeah,
if you
well,
yeah,
they just gonna frustrate their player. Well, what's the point? What are they doing? Is there a motivation behind that? What did they explain why they are doing this move? That's
Uh,
weird. Real
Adam, did you see
strange.
any explanation? Because I didn't.
I didn't see any explanation beyond their old games and nobody plays them anymore.
Of course, retro gaming is not a thing.
But these are not even like retro, right? These are like 5 years ago, 6 years ago games. These are not that old games, right? So it's still right. You pay money for it, it's yours. But I mean that goes the whole idea, right? The problem with buying games on the PlayStation, buying games on the Xbox, in the terms of service, it says while you paid for it, actually, whatever the hell we want to do, we can do it.
I'm sure it's in the
So
terms of service for Steam too, right?
oh yeah, that's it. I mean, I did signal out all that stuff, but yeah, of course, Steam is the same thing. Steam, it happens regularly, right? Something can get removed off Steam, and if you bought it, you no longer have access to it. Yeah, exactly. So I think it's unfortunate. I think that has ruined people's. But I think people have already expected, and this sort of drives home the point about indie gaming that you're paying for this experience. If there is DLC, it is going to be yours. Indie developers tend to say like, "Oh my God, it's got out of Steam. Don't worry, guys. You can just download it from our website, or something like that." Right? There's an incentive to be loyal to your customers. Whereas with AAA games, they're like, "Well, we're a $1 billion studio owned by Vivendi Media, and who cares?" So yeah, that sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Now, does that include though? I'm not sure. Does this include if, like, for instance, if you had the Game of the Year edition, sometimes where it comes with all the DLC, does that still come with everything, or do you have to? So is it only for like separate DLC, or would you, if you had the Game of the Year edition, would it's like, oh yeah, we're just not going to install these extra features?
We're not going to install these extra features.
That's shady.
But I can imagine, like again, goes into the whole macroeconomic stuff. Um, from just working myself in the company I work for, there's been a big, like most companies would have finished the Q3, Q4 planning for the end of this year, and given the economic climate, Facebook has said, "You guys, watch out! We need to cut costs." Companies are cutting costs. They're like, "Okay, we need to slim down. We don't want to keep these on the servers that we're paying for monthly." They're like even, you know, yeah, I've seen it as well internally. Is that they're reducing data costs, like minuscule amounts of dollars still matters at the end of the day to shareholders and investors. Was like, look, we've cut these costs. We shaved off $2,000 off our monthly burn. Who cares about consumers? We're making the shareholders happy.
Well, especially because a lot of these things, they are older, and like you were saying with what was it? There was, I don't remember what game it was. Oh, there's a game that is coming out for Xbox and it's been trending for the advertising, but when people were looking at it on Steam, it's been out for Steam and Switch for like 2 years, and they were looking at consecutive players, and there was something like 100 consecutive players per day or something like that over the last month. I don't remember what it's called. It's you are your toys, and it's a shooter, but you're playing as toys.
Hypercharge Blaster. I played it with my brothers. It's pretty fun.
Yeah. So the videos of it have been trending because it's coming out on Xbox, but they looked at consecutive players on Steam, and there were times where it was down to 25 people, and that was it. So I think from some of these companies' perspective, it's one of those things where like from the company's perspective, it's like, come on, really? Nobody's really playing this game anyway. Nobody's really going to care. Nobody's even going to really notice. But of course, we have to announce it. And once you announce it, I mean, that's how people are, right? It's like a kid where they don't want their toys, and then, they never play with them anymore. And then your mom says, okay, we're going to donate these to charity. And suddenly the kid's like, no. I love this toy. I want it. I don't want you to give it away. I want to keep this one. And then they play with it for another week, and then they forget it again, That's just human nature. So I understand the perspective. It does seem shady, but from a logical perspective, I'm like, it makes sense, but I don't like it.
I mean, that's weird. You get a car and you buy options, and 5 years later, you don't use the fan. Let me unscrew it from your car.
Well, if you already have the fan in the car, but it's like we just stopped selling that fan. And so if you wanted to upgrade it after the fact, you couldn't do it, So it's
shady.
Yeah, if it's already in the car, it's already there. If you've already downloaded this DLC, you already have it. It's sitting on.
But
your
you can't
console.
access it.
You can't re-download it. I think you can. I mean, if it's like story stuff, you can't access it. But I know they're taking down like a lot of their multiplayer stuff. So obviously you can't access it because you can't play multiplayer.
But I mean, it's all DLC attached to these games. Story, none. It's everything is gone because it's all the stuff that's downloaded.
But if you've already downloaded it, you can still play it.
So basically, you have to keep it on your computer forever.
Yeah. I mean, I have PT on my PS4 in perpetuity for exactly that reason. But but I refuse to delete PT. But yeah, I mean, it's I get the logic behind it, and it really does depend. I mean, I would be interested to see how many people are actually accessing that on a even monthly basis. Because it's one of those things where it's like, oh, okay, and this is one of the things with the PlayStation, when they said we're not going to be supporting PSP titles or PS3 titles anymore. I was against it, but I hadn't played my PS3 in 5-6 years at that point. So.
No, wait. For me, there's two things, right? If you want to cut down on multiplayer, which is not being played anymore in free server space, okay, that's normal, right? Because there's less player, on it. I'm fine with it. But why do you have to, cut down, or you can't access the single player option? That doesn't make sense to me. How does it affect them?
You still have to have server space to store all the data for that stuff. You have to download it from somewhere.
Yes, of course. Just no. For the multiplayer stuff, if it's past a certain time and not a lot of players are doing multiplayers on it, Okay, that's normal. I understand that turn off the servers. Sorry, people, not enough players. We turn off the servers, and that's it. Single player stuff, no, I'm not. I paid my DLC for my single player campaign with X, Y, and Z DLC. I want my DLC. I paid for them. Of course, no one is gonna look at every little details, after the asterisk when you buy a game. So I guess they are allowed to do it, of course.
Yeah.
Still,
I mean,
I
this is
still
what people have been saying for
don't play.
years, though, is you don't own digital, you license it. People have
Yeah,
been saying, buy physical, buy physical. This is exactly why you're supposed to buy physical. Is exactly this. Because if you do have which actually no, now in a lot of ways physical isn't even that reliable anymore anyway, because you end up downloading the disc and then you get you end up having to download that stuff anyway onto your console or your PC, and then you have to download all the patches and everything else. And I remember now, like if you get a lot of the game of the year editions of stuff, where it's like, oh, this comes included with the DLC. The DLC isn't actually included on the disc. It's just they have a little packet in the thing that has a code that you can download the DLC once. So if you resell it, the person you resell it to does not get that edition. So, I mean, this has been going on for years. It's just a matter of I think it's one of those things where it's always been a matter of time before it was like, okay, we can only store so much online, or afford to store so much online, or at least we claim to only be able to afford to store so much online. But yeah, but I mean, like what Korean was saying with blockchain, that would solve this, because then it's all stored in blockchains and it's stored across dozens, if not hundreds, of PCs. But
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's I like the idea, but I think it was still quite a few years away from NFTs for game ownership or anything like that.
yeah, did you hear that Square Enix is kind of backing down on the NFT push that they were going for?
I mean, it would make sense right now, given the current market and how crypto went from almost $3 trillion to under $1 trillion in the space of like 3 months. That is,
Ouch.
yes, ouch indeed. But guys, I hope you enjoyed today's choice, Adam's choice of Nine Souls. Just because the game hasn't been kickstarted or has already finished crowdfunding doesn't mean you can't support it. So if you want to support Taiwan or Taiwanese gaming, you can still go to Steam, wishlist it. You can wishlist it on a bunch of other platforms as well. Definitely support the studio if you're a big fan of the game. That is one way to do it. This tells the developers, because they can see on their little Steam dev platform, they say, okay, today we had 5,632 wish lists, which sort of tells them, okay, we need to prepare for this, or we need to do this marketing activity, or we need to prepare X amount of copies, or this amount of bandwidth, or that sort of stuff. So if you like today's episode, if you have thoughts about Nine Souls, if you want to follow the creators, please do check them out. As usual, you can check. Oh, Adam will not be streaming for the next 2 months. Adam?
Give or take, unfortunately. Yeah.
Yeah, because he is a busy fellow. Antoine, of course, as well, equally busy. I think pretty much everyone's going to be busy in this current economic climate.
So.
Yes, well, yes. So we're all trying to keep our jobs. But yeah, please keep an eye out for the videos. Keep an eye out for the podcast. We're still going to be doing those once a week. And that is it from me. You guys, any final thoughts, guys?
Nope.
If you can wishlist it on Steam, please do, because wishlist is the life and blood of indie gamers. That's how they get referenced on Steam, and that's how you can actually see the game on Steam. So please do, if you like the game, download the demo, wishlist. Everything Korean said. And that's it for me.
Cool. So you guys enjoy the rest of your evening or morning wherever you are. Keep gaming, keep enjoying life. Don't worry. And I will see you guys next week.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Bye.